Welcome back, movie fans, as we take a look at Obsession, the 2025 horror breakout that proves sometimes getting exactly what you wish for can be the worst thing that ever happened to you. So sit back while I give you some of the top trivia facts for Obsession 2025. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to help support my small channel. If you watched Obsession and thought it looked like a movie made for millions of dollars, here's the crazy part. It reportedly cost only about $750,000. And somehow, that tiny production turned into one of the most remarkable horror success stories in years. The movie was shot around Los Angeles in October of 2024, and principal photography lasted just 20 days. Even after reshoots, the entire production only reached about 26 shooting days, meaning the crew was sometimes racing through 5 or 6 pages of the script every day. But the filmmakers had a clever way of making that schedule work. Before cameras even started rolling, director Curry Barker and cinematographer Taylor Clemens 3D scanned the movie's locations and created virtual versions of the sets. They could then move a digital camera through those environments and essentially plan the movie before arriving on set. That meant fewer wasted setups, less unnecessary coverage, and much less money being burned. It also explains one of the movie's most noticeable visual styles. Barker deliberately avoided constantly cutting between camera angles. He rarely used traditional insert shots either. Instead, the movie is largely designed around what Bear sees and experiences, almost trapping the audience inside his perspective. And Barker pushed that idea even further during Bear's scenes with Nikki. Before the wish is made, actress Inde Navarrette sometimes performed the exact same scene in 2 completely different ways. In one version, Nikki genuinely liked Bear. In the other, she didn't. Barker then mixed pieces of those performances into the finished movie so that, just like Bear, the audience can never quite tell how Nikki actually feels about him. But that ambitious filmmaking style came with a downside. Because Barker relied so heavily on long takes and limited coverage, he discovered that if the pacing of a scene wasn't right during filming, there wasn't always an easy way to fix it later. Normally, an editor can cut to another angle, remove a pause, or rearrange shots. Here, sometimes there simply wasn't another shot. So a lot of the movie's rhythm had to be figured out while the camera was rolling. And for such a low-budget movie, the crew came up with some surprisingly creative tricks. Take Nikki's unsettling appearance in several of the darker scenes. Because the production couldn't afford elaborate lighting everywhere, the makeup team helped create the effect another way, including painting irises over Navarrette's closed eyelids. In the darkness, it helped give Nikki that bizarre, unnatural stare that eventually became one of the movie's most recognizable images. And not every memorable moment was planned. There's a scene where Nikki gets out of Bear's car, starts walking one direction, changes her mind, turns around again, and basically seems to have no idea where she's going. That's because the actress genuinely forgot which direction she was supposed to walk. Navarrette realized she'd messed up. Michael Johnston started laughing, and instead of throwing the takeaway, Barker decided the awkwardness was perfect for Nikki, so the mistake stayed in the movie. Another scene nearly became much more real than anyone intended. When Nikki vomits on Bear, a hidden effects tube was supposed to deliver the fake vomit. Unfortunately, some of the mixture went directly into Navarrette's mouth and down her throat. She started gagging and came dangerously close to actually vomiting on Michael Johnston's face. So if Bear looks genuinely terrified in that moment, he kind of was. Johnston apparently wasn't against taking one for the movie either. He later said he would have allowed her to actually vomit on him if that's what the scene needed. There was also some movie magic hiding in Nikki's strange movements around Bear's bed. For part of that sequence, Navarrette was secretly replaced by a professional dancer. The filmmakers used the flowers Nikki holds in front of her face to help disguise the switch. And speaking of things you probably wouldn't notice, every driving scene in Obsession was filmed indoors. Instead of taking the actors onto real roads, the filmmakers placed screens outside the car windows and played moving background footage across them. It's another example of how much of the movie's look came from clever planning instead of money. Even the One Wish Willow itself has a surprisingly strange origin. The snapping mechanism was inspired by a prank pen Curry Barker remembered playing with as a kid. The prop department eventually found a similar pen, took it apart, studied the mechanism, and incorporated part of the idea into the Willow, and creating the Willow became something of a Barker family project. The packaging was designed with help from Curry Barker's mother, professional graphic designer Amy Vega. His father, playwright Jeff Barker, was involved too. Curry asked him to write Nikki's Hansel and Gretel monologue because he wanted that section of dialogue to feel as though it came from a completely different voice. Jeff Barker also worked as a script consultant and actually appears in the movie as the trivia night host. Even the basic idea behind the magical wish has an unexpected influence. Barker has said that part of the inspiration came after watching a rerun of The Simpsons' 1991 Treehouse of Horror 2. Originally, he had considered simply giving Bear something similar to a monkey's paw. But he eventually decided it would be more interesting and somehow more disturbing if the magical object felt like something Bear could casually walk into a store and buy. That crystal store location is real, by the way. And after the movie became popular, fans apparently began visiting some of the actual filming locations. The restaurant booth where Nikki delivers the now famous "no, no, no" moment became enough of a talking point that moviegoers reportedly started seeking out the exact booth. Another filming location has an even stranger Hollywood connection. The music store seen in Obsession was the real Cassell's Music in San Fernando. And more than 30 years earlier, that same store appeared in Wayne's World, where Wayne famously admires the white Fender Stratocaster. Unfortunately, Cassell's closed in 2025 after nearly 78 years in business. One other location disappeared for a much darker reason. Barker had planned to return to the house used for the party scene to shoot additional footage. But before he could, the house was reportedly destroyed in the 2025 Palisades fire. There are even some bizarre stories about the actors themselves. Before production, Barker organized a screening of Hereditary to put everyone in the right mindset for the kind of horror movie they were about to make. There's just one problem. Inde Navarrette is apparently extremely affected by horror movies. During the screening, she became so frightened that she reportedly ran out of the room, and afterward, while running to her car in the dark, a car backfired nearby, which apparently made her run even faster. Then there's Michael Johnston. During the trivia night sequence, Johnston forgot his contact lenses. So while Bear is casually interacting with everyone in the scene, Johnston reportedly couldn't clearly see much farther than about 20 inches in front of his face. But perhaps the craziest piece of trivia isn't anything that happened during filming, it's what happened afterward. Obsession premiered in the Midnight Madness section of the Toronto International Film Festival in September of 2025. And after spending less than $1 million making the movie, the filmmakers suddenly found themselves in a bidding war. Companies reportedly interested included A24, Neon, and Focus Features. Within roughly 24 hours, Focus Features acquired the distribution rights for a reported $15 million or more. Think about that. A movie made for roughly $750,000 was suddenly valued at around 20 times its entire production budget before its theatrical run had really even begun. And according to the reported box office figures, things only got crazier from there. Instead of collapsing after opening weekend like most horror movies, Obsession reportedly earned around 40% more in its second weekend and then increased again in weekend number 3. A box office pattern that is almost unheard of for a modern wide release. So for a movie about a wish that spirals completely out of control, it's strangely appropriate that Obsession itself started as a tiny independent production and turned into something far bigger than anyone probably wished for. Well, that wraps up another movie from the awesome vault. Obsession is definitely one of those movies that proves you don't need a massive Hollywood budget to create something memorable, and its crazy journey from a tiny production to a breakout horror hit makes the story behind the movie almost as interesting as the movie itself. Let me know in the comments if Obsession had you hooked, or if this wish was one you would have taken back. And until next time, keep watching that cinema and stay cool, guys.
You love me more than anyone in the world?
Yes, more than anyone.